And a very happy Friday to you at 12:08 in the West. It's the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's across the glass.
John, I know you're going to be shocked to hear this, but there may have been more than one victim in the case of the Valley Village naked man.
That a man without clothes, a.k.a. a naked man.
More than one victim?
He went to multiple houses with only the poncho on.
Is that so?
And apparently at the new house that we're learning about, how do I put this? He was, what was he doing? He was
Doing the most with his hands.
I think I'd rather have Kramer as my neighbor than this guy. Who was the guy from Home Improvement, Wilson?
Yeah.
You never saw much of him, let alone his goods. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Coming up later on in the program, ABC News legal analyst Royal Oak stops by, and Jim Lacey is here to break down the latest between Trump v. Elon. It looks like it's simmering down a bit. It was just boiling hot yesterday, and it looks like today they're taking a little time off and not going at each other's jugulars.
Well, when you've escalated to the point where you're accusing somebody of being in the Epstein files, where do you escalate from there?
It could go to the octagon. I don't know.
Pay-per-view. That's how we settle the national debt. Sell tickets.
If you're a old school fan of the WWF, WrestleMania 5 was when Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man Randy Savage had a falling out, and their tag team was called the Mega Powers. And there's a meme going around the internet about the clash of the MAGA powers between Trump and Elon. So we'll break that down for you, the 2 o'clock hour, so make sure you stick around for that. But first, we know that there is an insurance crisis here in the state of California. So many homes are in areas that are dealing with extreme fire risk, including places like Malibu, Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead. The plan of last resort, if none of the private companies will sell you an insurance plan, the plan of last resort is the FAIR Plan, which we learned is going bankrupt. And the California State Insurance Commissioner, Ricardo Lara, just gave the people who run the FAIR Plan, which is the insurance companies, the ability to pass on many of those costs to consumers here in the state of California, not just the ones impacted by the fires, but everyone who owns a home and owns a policy in the state of California. Well, as it turns out, the FAIR Plan isn't just providing insurance for people in fire risk areas. Randy, they're going far beyond that.
In fact, thanks to an investigation from CBS News up and down the state of California, the majority of the plans that the FAIR Plan writes are in low fire risk areas. So even in low risk areas, they're the only insurer.
So if you're in the flats by the beach, let's say, and your area doesn't have a high fire risk because there's not a lot of foliage and you've got the beach, which is essentially one big ashtray right next to you, and you end up on the FAIR Plan, you're going to pay a fortune for a policy that you essentially can't use in an area that has almost no fire risk.
And shocker, shocker, Ricardo Lara's plan to get people off the FAIR Plan isn't going to work.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Surprise, surprise.
For more, here's a great report from KCAL.
California's insurance of last resort is supposed to be for homes with high wildfire risk, but now people in low-risk areas are being forced onto the FAIR Plan, and you could be next. CBS News California Investigates Julie Watts is here live to explain why the state's solution may not be enough. Julie, this is wild.
Yeah, we really crunched the data. Our CBS News California data analysis found the vast majority of people who are on the FAIR Plan actually live in areas that the insurance companies classify as low risk.
So what is happening here?
None of it makes any sense at all. None of it. What does make sense is that we're getting screwed and we're paying a fortune for a service that we're required to have but can't use.
And the insurance companies keep saying, but we're not making enough.
Even the experts were surprised by what we found when we crunched that data and discovered that the state's proposed solution to get people off the FAIR Plan likely won't be enough.
Yeah, what does it say that we're 6 months into Ricardo Lara's plan and Fair Plan policies have only gone up.
He's going to say, give it more time.
He's almost out of time.
Thank God.
I love it, baby. I love it.
I do too.
For Ken and Lisa, their new house in West Roseville is the dream.
But hopefully we can get insurance.
I know.
That's quickly becoming an all too common nightmare.
Yeah, hope to God.
When Lisa called to transfer their insurance to the new house,
They said, I'm sorry, you're denied. And I was in shock. I thought, are you kidding me? He's been on their insurance for 30 years.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter anymore.
No, they literally do not care.
And we've never had any problems. We've never had any claims.
That doesn't matter either.
Nope.
and they're only moving 3 minutes away.
It's not like they moved into some cabin in the woods. They're in the same neighborhood practically that they were in. They had a policy. They moved. No policy for you.
These companies just want to dump all of us. I think that's what it is.
Yep.
And they're only moving 3 minutes away.
I was so surprised. I thought they were making a mistake, actually.
But it's no mistake. Turns out Lisa and Ken's insurer is among several major insurers that stopped writing new policies in California, meaning they're struggling to find an insurer for their new home, and the people buying their old home can't find insurance either.
Oh, God.
So wait, so the home that was fine for the old insurance company is no longer fine for the new owners, and these people who move 3 minutes away can't find a company to take them either.
Yes.
Okay, that's exactly what it is. They want out of California, period.
Most people have mortgages, so they have to have insurance with that mortgage.
The only options? A risky, unregulated out-of-state insurer, or the California Fair Plan, the state's insurance of last resort, which is expensive and doesn't cover much.
It's just a frightening time to be buying homes, living in homes. Even renters are going to have their problems.
The Fair Plan was intended for homes with high wildfire risk.
Actually, that's not what it was intended for at all.
It was intended for homes that were near the Watts riots.
Yes, that's why the Fair Plan was created, because nobody wanted to insure anything near where the riot zone was back in the 60s.
And then it evolved into something that took care of people in fire risk areas.
The Fair Plan was intended for homes with high wildfire risk, but a CBS News California data analysis finds most of the homes on the Fair Plan are in the lowest risk zip codes, according to the insurer's fire risk classification.
So it has nothing to do with fire risk.
0.
Like Ken and Lisa's, which gets just a 0.34 on the insurer's 4-point scale. In fact, we found there are 10 times more homes in low-risk zip codes than high-risk on the Fair Plan. And while some are being forced into the Fair Plan because they can't get new policies, others are losing their existing fire policies.
We share a roof, we share this wall,
Like Helen.
the same risk factors.
Her Palisades duplex survived the fire, but just weeks before, she was forced onto the Fair Plan. State Farm renewed her neighbor's fire policy, but not Helen's.
None of this makes any sense. None of it. Outside of the fact that these companies probably are mandating to their employees that they drop a certain percentage of their California clients per year. And if you are renewing when they're supposed to be cutting, you're out.
Doesn't matter if there's any rhyme or any reason to it. You're out. You're done.
It's totally random.
Why are so many low-risk homes?
And then you see all the things going on where they fly a drone over your house, and if there's a bird in the picture, they say, there's damage to your roof. You're dropped.
But what they're doing is they're not looking for actual threats. What they're doing is they're looking for an excuse to drop you.
Yeah.
Being non-renewed.
It's a canary in the coal mine that there is a much bigger problem going on.
Can we stop with that cliche already?
Yeah, no kidding.
It's a cliche from coal mining days. Let's stop already.
It's a canary in the coal mine that there is a much bigger problem going on.
Rex Frazier represents the insurance industry.
Gee, I wonder what point of view he has.
Probably the same as Ricardo Lara's.
Should be asking, why in the world does the Fair Plan have 500,000 policies in it?
Because insurers are non-renewing policies. Why are they non-renewing policies?
Because we have a system in California that has not allowed companies to earn enough money to do business everywhere.
You got to understand, it's very expensive for State Farm to keep buying the naming rights to stadiums.
Here's what's so weird. They're all saying that they're not making any money in the state of California, and that's why they want to pull out. And they are investing their money in the stock market. So some years, I guess, they have good years. Some years they have bad years, depending on how they invest their money. They obviously insure people in other states. So when there's a weather event in Florida or North Carolina or fill in the blank, New Jersey, New York, that obviously will impact whatever money they have left over for the people of California. But one of the things that we can't get them to do in good times and in bad times is to fulfill their obligations in the contract. When you sign a contract with them and you buy specific policies and there is a fire or there is a flood or there is a hurricane or there's a fill in the blank, and okay, it says in the policy, if this were to happen, this is what I get, they don't want to pay you that. And for whatever reason, the state of California, which claims to be very consumer friendly, will not enforce the contract. They're willing to put all of these regulations on the books, but they're not willing to do the basics, which is enforcing a private contract between a company and a customer.
Which is the base job, the job that was supposed to be for the insurance commissioner. But we have a crooked insurance commissioner who literally goes out to dinner with the CEOs of these insurance companies, who said he was going to take money from the insurance industry, and he did, who goes to all these paid-for conferences by the insurance industry, so he doesn't care if they fulfill their end of the bargain.
I think that's part of why the insurance industry likes him so much, because regulation per se is something that industry usually shies away from. But if you get to write the regulations and then the government doesn't force you to abide by your private contracts, that benefits you.
Well, look what's going on right now. Over the last 2 years, Ricardo Lara crafted a plan that gave the insurance industry everything they've been asking for years in the state of California and more. Pretty much everything they already get to do in Florida, where they've tripled insurance rates. And they're still dropping policies left and right.
I'm not a big regulation guy by admission, but if you sign a private contract, you have to fulfill your obligations. And if you don't, someone somewhere has to enforce it. And California's dropping the ball.
Insurers argue that California's strict insurance regulations have prevented them from charging enough to cover their risk, so they had to start cutting policies. Californians spend on average less for homeowners insurance than people in 19 other states, even though our home values and the costs to rebuild are much more expensive. Now, home insurers are still profitable in California, but a CBS News California data analysis reveals profitability has declined.
But they're still profitable, so they're not losing money on California policies. Like State Farm with their 8 million policies, but they can't seem to pay for the 20,000 that they had to deal with in the Palisades.
Nope, and I think part of their figuring is if you were to lawyer up and sue them, it costs you a fortune and you just lost everything that you own. They have lawyers on staff, and they can drag it out as long as they want. It won't hurt them.
And insurers rely on profits to replenish their reserves, which are also dwindling. They need reserves to cover claims after big events like the LA fires.
So you're saying if we were paying more right now for insurance, we wouldn't be in this situation?
That's 100% what I'm saying. How can we simultaneously say we're in a changing climate?
Oh, here we go.
I'm telling you, these insurance companies are as left-wing as they come when it comes to climate change. They are the biggest alarmists on planet Earth, more than Greta Thunberg.
How can we simultaneously say we're in a changing climate, we have really expensive homes that are built next to a lot of burnable things?
No. The majority of the policies of the FAIR Plan are in low-risk suburbs, in the flats.
And then act like, oh, there's going to be no impact on rates. That's ridiculous.
Well,
Wait, they were getting rate hikes anyway. And now they're getting emergency rate hikes. And what did State Farm do? Immediately ask for yet another rate hike.
Not even a week after they got the previous one.
New regulations will soon let insurers charge more in California. And in exchange, insurers are supposed to write more policies for people on the FAIR Plan. But here's the catch. The regulation specifies only people on the FAIR Plan who the insurers classify as moderate to high wildfire risk.
Which is not the majority of FAIR Plan policies.
Nope.
We're just getting started here with this investigation into the FAIR Plan and a response from Mr. Wig Snatcher himself, Ricardo Lara.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, it's Jimmy Buffett Friday. The weekend is right around the corner. We're not producing live shows on Saturday or Sunday, but if you want to continue listening to us, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcast, whether it's the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do what George Gascon does to himself in the middle of the night.
Do a Google on YouTube.
Or get one of our handy-dandy apps, whether it's the KABC app in Southern California, the KSFO app in Northern California. All the podcasts are right there, and it's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station. So if you're in an office building and the signal's not coming through, it comes in crystal clear. You can listen to us around the world in HD and get all those podcasts, which means if it's a Saturday or Sunday, you can still pretend like it's
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
We're going through all the latest on California homeowners who don't live in areas with extreme fire risk being dumped onto the California FAIR Plan for no good reason at all.
And turns out, thanks to an investigation from CBS News in California, that the majority of the policies the FAIR Plan writes are to low fire risk zones, and Ricardo Lara's plan to depopulate the FAIR Plan only targets those in high fire risk zones.
Which means it's not going to work, and oh, by the way, it's not working.
Remember, we showed you, according to the insurers, most people on the FAIR Plan live in low-risk zip codes. So the regulations may not help everyone on the FAIR Plan.
I think it's outrageous. The whole point of the regulations were to get people off their FAIR Plan.
Consumer watchdog's Jamie Court was surprised by our findings and notes insurers can now pass the cost of the FAIR Plan on to all of us.
Oh, yeah, that was the one tiny change that Ricardo Lara made that actually went into effect 2 weeks before the just devastating fires in the Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena, was that it used to be that if the FAIR Plan went broke, because the FAIR Plan isn't a state plan, it's a consortium of all the other insurance companies together. And the whole idea is if you don't want to write policies, you got to put them on the FAIR Plan. But if the FAIR Plan gets overburdened and goes broke, you have to bail out the FAIR Plan because you don't want to write those policies. Ricardo Lara changed the rules 2 weeks before those fires to say when the FAIR Plan goes broke, you can pass that cost on to consumers through assessment fees like an HOA.
And what's interesting is that Jamie Court was unaware that all of these homes in low fire risk areas were being dumped on the FAIR Plan, which means they were trying to hide this.
Yep.
When you crunch the numbers, as you have, it shows there is no incentive to get people off the FAIR Plan.
And there's no telling who might be forced onto the FAIR Plan next.
Everybody's at risk. Don't get comfortable with your insurance company right now because they can drop you like that.
Now, this was a rare case where after seeing our data, both insurance industry representatives and consumer advocates agreed that they would support updating the regulation to incentivize insurers to write policies for anyone on the FAIR Plan, not just people in high-risk areas.
Yeah, but that's not the regulations that were written that Ricardo Lara worked so hard on for 2 years and risked his whole career for.
No, now that you see how they're doing it, you understand the scam. They want people on the FAIR Plan.
Yeah.
Because if the FAIR Plan can just raise rates on everyone statewide with one stroke of the pen by the California Insurance Commissioner, then that's a way, a clever way, an unfair way for the insurance industry to mitigate the risk.
They can write you a worse policy, charge you more for it, and if the policies get overburdened, they can charge you again.
Yes, because if you have a policy with a blue chip company, maybe they'll deny you. If you lawyer up, at some point, a judge or someone will force them to fulfill their obligations in the contract. But the FAIR Plan basically offers you nothing. So if they can charge you through the nose, they can raise the rates on everyone statewide anytime they want, and then they don't have to pay out. From their point of view, that's the best case scenario.
And the insurance companies, even though they make up the FAIR Plan, when they see people getting denied on the FAIR Plan, they say, hey, that's not us. That's the FAIR Plan. Go buy that, because people are under the impression that that is a state plan, and it is not.
Nope.
We've, of course, shared these findings with the Department of Insurance, and we'll be following up. Stay tuned.
Well, what about Ken and Lisa? Do they have a path to private insurance?
This was the couple that moved to a home 3 miles away from their existing home. They tried to transfer their insurance policy. The insurance company said no, and the people that bought their old home couldn't get insurance on the house that was just insured.
You know, that's what's really interesting. So Ken and Lisa's insurer is one of several that have now committed to start writing new policies in California as soon as the new regulations take effect. And that's sort of the argument.
They already have taken effect, and they're not writing new policies.
Which means they're not going to be writing them a new policy anytime soon.
And that's
first they need to get a couple of those 60-day rate hikes, then maybe.
And that's sort of the argument. These new regulations will allow insurers to charge more.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it interesting that they got all of these new great deals to raise rates as fast as possible? Ricardo Lara has to give them a decision in 60 days so they can constantly apply for new rate increases. They're not writing any new policies, so they're not adding any more risk, but they're making a ton of money off of existing policyholders.
And California homeowners are the ones getting screwed.
And so they're saying, okay, well, if more insurers are writing policies, there's more competition. And so ultimately rates will come down. More people will be insured.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Nope.
But it's a lot of what ifs, right? It's a lot of wait and sees.
Yeah, which isn't easy for people like Ken and Lisa and all the others that are struggling to get the insurance.
Exactly.
All right, Julie, thanks so much. Great job.
Now, in a separate piece, Cal sat down with Ricardo Lara to talk about his plan to save the insurance industry.
And he's a guy who doesn't do many interviews, so this is rare.
Okay, we don't need the music, guys.
Crisis seems to be ramping up. Regulators and lawmakers are working on solutions, but homeowners are still struggling to find coverage and keep it. KCAL reporter Christine Lazar spoke with the state's insurance commissioner about his hopes for the future.
Could new insurance models bring more companies back to California and make insurance more affordable to all?
No.
Not even close.
This is a way for them to charge you more for your existing policy.
California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara recently chatted with KCAL News about an idea he's proposing to lure insurers back to our state.
If you're a resident of California, it's likely already obvious to you.
We are living through an insurance crisis now.
Who's been in charge for the last 6 years?
I love the fact that he just acts like he's some guy that writes letters to the editor of the newspaper, and he doesn't have complete control of the industry, or at least the regulation aspect of the industry in the state.
We are living through an insurance crisis now.
The most recent casualties, survivors of the Palisades and Eaton fires.
We're seeing that now we no longer just have a fire season. We have to learn to live with fire year round.
Which means a sense of instability and uncertainty all the way around. From where our insurance commissioner sits.
Insurance touches every sector of every part of our economy.
Okay, we're just doing platitudes here.
He doesn't know anything about this industry. Maybe he's picked some things up over 6 years. He didn't come from this industry. It was just a job that was open, and he had the ability, the political connections to win.
And climate change is really upending every bit of that.
Yeah, what a great cover.
It's all climate change.
In response, the California Department of Insurance recently hosted the Global Sustainable Insurance Summit in Long Beach. We met with Commissioner Ricardo Lara as the conference was underway. It was designed to be a meeting of the minds.
Where we bring...
I wonder what fancy Long Beach hotel he stayed at.
Oh, it had to be a good one. Maybe he stayed at Terranea over in Palos Verdes and just commuted in.
Insurance experts, environmental experts, academia to come together to really tackle the issue around insurability, affordability, and climate change.
I wonder how many conferences he's been to in the last 6 years.
Oh, well, didn't KGO figure that out?
I think it was 38 state-paid international travel visits.
Commissioner Lara says to keep insurance available and affordable, homes need to become more resilient and regulate.
But there's no discount for that.
No. That's the problem. There's no incentive. Just like you told us all to get solar and you'd give us all these incentives and then you took it away because you said it wasn't equitable.
And regulators need to do more to entice insurers to return to California. One idea being debated.
How do we create new coverages like parametric insurance.
Parametric insurance pays claims based on the level of a disaster rather than the value of the loss.
The hell does that mean?
I don't know, but I have a feeling if they make it more complicated than it should be, it means you get paid less.
So payouts would be determined by the severity of the fire or weather event, regardless of the amount.
That's not how insurance works.
No.
You have a value of something that you are paying to insure. And if you have to use that policy, it's supposed to replace what you had.
If you're going to give people in Pacific Palisades the same amount of money that you would give homeowners in Needles or Barstow, then they're not going to be able to replace what they had.
Regardless of the amount of damage to a home. For policyholders, some could get money for losses they didn't incur. Others might find their payouts fall short of the cost to rebuild.
How is this something that solves the problem?
No, it doesn't solve the problem. In fact, what's the point of even having insurance?
There really is. Outside of you need it for a mortgage, that's all it is now.
Parametric policies are attractive to insurers because their costs would be more predictable. Lara says that could result in more of them returning to California.
Yeah, because they don't have to pay out claims. That's great for them.
That really, really, really screws people in areas where the home values are high. And it's not just Beverly Hills. It's not just Manhattan Beach. If you have a house in the San Fernando Valley that you bought in the 1980s, it's probably, I don't know, gone up exponentially from when you bought it.
The dumpy old valley is $1 million neighborhood now.
And if they're willing to give you, I don't know, what would it cost to build a home in Barstow? $300,000, $400,000? You can't rebuild your home in Van Nuys.
So that we provide coverage for more folks.
Meanwhile, the insurance...
It's so funny because he's explaining things that he doesn't understand because the insurance industry told him this is what you're going to pitch to everyone. By the way, how'd you like that hotel?
Oh, the slippers were soft.
Or that tapas restaurant that he went to with the CEO of Farmers in downtown L.A. with the $700 bill.
That's a lot of tapas.
Meanwhile, the...
Well...
Or booze. Or something else.
Meanwhile, the insurance industry is funding disaster research of its own and is sharing their findings with lawmakers and regulators alike.
Yeah, but they won't show you how they come to these conclusions that say they need to jack up everyone's rates because the whole state's going to melt.
No, and then when they have a hearing, he doesn't even show up.
Given the challenges faced by survivors in the Palisades and Altadena, Lara welcomes their findings and suggestions. His hope?
We empower consumers and folks to build back better and smarter.
Isn't that Joe Biden's program?
What's with the triple B alliterations?
Build Back Better was Joe Biden's infrastructure bill, correct?
Yes. No, that was the one that didn't pass.
Okay.
That was the one that was like the free child care.
I see.
They did not build back better. Now we get Big Beautiful Bill. It's a triple B either way you go.
Better and smarter so that we're not back here 5, 10, 20 years again, so we can't repeat those same mistakes.
Lara advises people having trouble getting reimbursement on their current policy to file a complaint with his office.
Yeah, that hasn't worked. You don't pick up the phone.
No, that is the number one complaint that we get from homeowners. They can't get calls returned from his office.
The California Insurance Commission says it will investigate all complaints of insurer malfeasance.
No, and in fact, there were thousands of people that have had to deal with their claims being denied by State Farm specifically. Ricardo Lara did not do anything about that and then approved State Farm's emergency rate increase.
Well, now I can see why he agreed to this interview. Boy, did they treat him with kid gloves. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, anytime we do a topic involving California's insurance commissioner, typically the emails are too graphic to read on the air.
He's really become the new Katie Porter.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Peter, I love what you said about Ricardo Lara, but I don't think I can read it. Ironically, the cleanest email in here is from Will. Will writes in and says, wait, this meeting of insurance hacks that Lara attended was a meeting of the so-called minds? Should that mean that zero IQ Lara should be excluded?
Coming up later out of the program, Jim Lacey is going to be here, and we're going to talk about the battle going on X between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And, Randy, it's a Friday. Everyone's ready for the weekend, and it looks like even those two have cooled off.
The latest that I saw was late last night. Trump said he's going to sell that Tesla he bought from Elon.
Can you imagine how much that Tesla would go for?
There's how you settle the national debt. Put that thing on eBay.
Oh, can you imagine?
It's a piece of history.
It was a car that was in photographs with both of those guys. Both of them sat in it. Trump owned it. What do you think the value of that car is? It has to be seven figures. 100%.
Definitely. I mean, you see what people pay for old baseball cards.
Well, how about homes? If you go buy a home that someone famous owned, even though they don't live there anymore and they might even be dead, because someone famous once lived there, the value of the home is astronomical. Did I ever tell you about the time I bought Jerry Seinfeld's condo?
Oh, yeah.
And apparently, even though he's supposed to be a super nice guy, everyone in the building hated him because he sold the condo right after he made it big on NBC. He had a sitcom, and he started to do really well financially. And he was making so much money, he just wanted to unload the condo, and he didn't really want to get involved in the nickels and dimes. He just wanted it gone. So he sold it for way under what the condo was actually worth and drove down the values of all the other units in the building. And when I moved in and I started talking to people who lived in the building, and they said, you know, that used to belong to Jerry Seinfeld. And I go, oh, yeah, I heard that from the realtor. And they'd say, and we all hate him because he drove down the value of our units. And I said, well, was he unkind? Was he a bad neighbor? No, he was fine, but he drove down the value of our units. What are you going to do? No Newman in the building, though. No Kramer either. No pictures in the lobby so you could say hi to people. None of that happened there.